In the nascent days of Bitcoin, when the idea of a decentralized digital currency was still novel and few could have predicted its eventual rise to global prominence, a single exchange rose to dominate the fledgling ecosystem. This was Mt. Gox, a name that would become synonymous not just with Bitcoin's early growth but also with its darkest hours. The story of Mt. Gox is not just one of technological failure but of hubris, greed, and the catastrophic consequences of misplaced trust. Mt. Gox, short for Magic, the Gathering online e-exchange, began its life as something entirely unrelated to cryptocurrency. Founded by programmer Jed McCaleb in 2007, the platform was originally a trading site for fans of the collectible card game Magic, the Gathering. The name, quirky and niche, reflected its humble beginnings. But McCaleb had an eye for opportunity, and by 2010, he saw Bitcoin's potential as an emerging technology. With only a few hundred people actively involved in Bitcoin at the time, McCaleb repurposed Mt. Gox as a Bitcoin exchange, creating a platform where users could trade Bitcoin for fiat currencies. Bitcoin was still a curiosity in 2010, a technological experiment more than a practical currency. Transactions were rare, prices were volatile, and the community was small and tight-knit. But as Bitcoin began to gain traction, Mt. Gox became a central hub for activity. By 2011, it was the largest Bitcoin exchange in the world, handling a staggering 70% of all Bitcoin transactions globally. What had started as a side project for McCaleb was now a cornerstone of the cryptocurrency market. Yet, despite its meteoric rise, Mt. Gox was built on shaky foundations. The platform's codebase, hastily written and inadequately tested, was riddled with vulnerabilities. McCaleb, recognizing that he lacked the expertise to manage the rapidly growing exchange, sold Mt. Gox in 2011 to Marc Karpeles, a French programmer living in Japan. Karpeles, a self-styled entrepreneur with a flair for dramatic pronouncements, took over the exchange with grand ambitions. He envisioned Mt. Gox as not just a trading platform but the backbone of a new financial order. Under Karpeles' leadership, Mt. Gox continued to grow, riding the wave of Bitcoin's increasing popularity. However, the cracks in its foundation were never addressed. The exchange's infrastructure struggled to handle the growing volume of transactions, and its security practices were alarmingly lax. Unknown to Karpeles, or perhaps ignored by him, a disaster was brewing within Mt. Gox's systems. The first signs of trouble appeared in June 2011 when Mt. Gox suffered its first major hack. Attackers exploited a flaw in the exchange's software to steal approximately 25,000 BTC, worth around $400,000 at the time. While the hack was a significant blow, Bitcoin's price was still relatively low, and the theft didn't draw widespread attention. Karpeles reassured users that the issue had been resolved and promised that Mt. Gox would implement better security measures. What he didn't realize was that the breach had deeper implications. The attackers had managed to gain access to Mt. Gox's private keys, the cryptographic credentials required to control Bitcoin wallets. With these keys in hand, they had effectively gained control over the exchange's funds. For years, the hackers operated in the shadows, siphoning Bitcoin from Mt. Gox's reserves. Rather than executing a single dramatic theft, they drained the exchange slowly and methodically, ensuring that their activities remained undetected. By the time the theft was discovered in 2014, the hackers had stolen an estimated 850,000 BTC, worth over $450 million at the time and over $30 billion at Bitcoin's 2021 peak. Meanwhile, Karpeles continued to expand Mt. Gox, oblivious to the growing black hole in its finances. By 2013, Bitcoin had entered a period of explosive growth, attracting attention from mainstream media, investors, and even regulators. As the largest Bitcoin exchange, Mt. Gox became a focal point of this attention. But with growth came scrutiny, and users began to notice troubling signs. Withdrawals were frequently delayed, and the platform's customer service was notoriously unresponsive. CarPlus dismissed these issues as growing pains, insisting that Mt. Gox was still the best option for Bitcoin traders. Behind the scenes, however, the situation was spiraling out of control. By late 2013, Mt. Gox was effectively insolvent. The stolen Bitcoins had left the exchange unable to meet its obligations to users, but CarPlus refused to acknowledge the severity of the problem. Instead, he attempted to cover up the losses, using his technical expertise to manipulate Mt. Gox's internal records. He created fake entries to make it appear as though the exchange still held sufficient reserves, a move that would later lead to criminal charges against him. In early 2014, the facade began to crumble. Users reported increasingly long delays in withdrawing funds, and rumors of a security breach began to circulate in online forums. On February 7, 2014, Mt. Gox suspended all Bitcoin withdrawals, citing a technical issue. Panic set in among users, many of whom had their life savings tied up in the exchange. 3 weeks later, on February 24, Mt. Gox ceased all trading and filed for bankruptcy, revealing that the vast majority of its Bitcoins were missing. The announcement sent shockwaves through the cryptocurrency world, triggering a massive sell-off and raising questions about Bitcoin's future. The fallout from Mt. Gox's collapse was swift and brutal. Thousands of users lost their funds, many of whom had invested in Bitcoin at its early, low prices and were sitting on life-changing profits. The scandal eroded trust in the cryptocurrency industry, leading to calls for greater regulation and oversight. For Bitcoin, which was still struggling for mainstream acceptance, the incident was a significant setback. In the aftermath, investigations revealed the extent of the mismanagement and incompetence at Mt. Gox. CarPlus, once a celebrated figure in the Bitcoin community, was arrested in Japan in 2015 and charged with embezzlement and data manipulation. While he denied any involvement in the theft, he admitted to falsifying Mt. Gox's financial records. In 2019, he was found guilty of record tampering but was acquitted of embezzlement charges. Many observers believed that CarPlus' actions were driven more by desperation and incompetence than by outright malice. Efforts to recover the stolen Bitcoins have yielded limited success. Blockchain analysts traced some of the funds, revealing a sophisticated laundering operation that used mixing services and off-chain transactions to obscure the trail. While a small fraction of the stolen Bitcoin has been recovered, the vast majority remains unaccounted for, hidden in the depths of the blockchain. For the thousands of Mt. Gox users who lost their savings, the road to compensation has been long and fraught with challenges. Japanese courts have overseen a protracted bankruptcy process, and while some victims have received partial repayments, many are still waiting for justice. The case has become a cautionary tale, highlighting the risks of trusting centralized platforms in a decentralized ecosystem. The Mt. Gox heist remains one of the most significant events in cryptocurrency history, a stark reminder of the perils of unregulated markets and the importance of security in the digital age. While Bitcoin has recovered and thrived in the years since the scandal, the lessons of Mt. Gox continue to resonate. For the cryptocurrency industry, it was a painful but necessary wake-up call, forcing exchanges to adopt better practices and prompting users to take greater responsibility for their funds. Today, the name Mt. Gox is a relic of Bitcoin's early days, a symbol of both its potential and its pitfalls. For those who lived through its rise and fall, it serves as a reminder that in the world of cryptocurrency, trust is both precious and fragile, and the cost of losing it can be catastrophic.